The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production.
Kev, you were absolutely right about the England-Scotland match. Do you remember a couple of weeks, a week ago? Was it a week ago? A couple of weeks?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. You said that England would lose against Scotland, and look what happened, Kev. You are the oracle.
I got all my predictions right that weekend, and I got all my predictions right the following weekend.
Did you? Well, every single one. Did you get the other one right as well? You did.
Yeah.
Oh.
I got them all right.
What are the?
It's more tricky from here on in, though.
Give us how many numbers these days? They keep adding numbers on in the lotto. Give us the first three winning numbers in this week's lotto, Kev. Go on, just pick 3
18, 42 and 6.
There we go. 42 actually is one of those numbers that comes out surprisingly often, and I'm sure it's got
nothing. Come out this weekend, I know it.
Do you not? Oh, do you always put it down?
I don't do it.
No, you're not there. Now, the biggie, England versus Wales, and I'm sorry for those that say, what? Why is that the biggie? Just because it's got England? No, in Kev's life, you're not going to see it. You've planned this terribly. You're going to be at a wedding.
About a wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
he's already yawning. Are we keeping you up, Kev?
Yeah, I'll be at a wedding that day.
What are you going to do? Are you going to sneak a telly in or something?
I can't. I don't even know what time it's on. I don't know whether it's the early game, the late game.
It doesn't matter. You're going to be otherwise engaged, whatever happens, aren't you?
Well, if it's the late game, it could be during speeches, you see.
Kev, you still have to photograph the speeches.
No, I don't mean speeches. I mean when they're sitting down.
Oh, during the meal. Otherwise, why have we got the speeches missing? Well, it was Wales versus England.
The FujiCast.
I couldn't possibly be there during the speeches. If it's during the meal, then you'll be okay, won't you?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. You
can nip off for that particular one, but yeah, it's a bit like cup final day, isn't it?
Yeah, it's bigger than that for me.
Is it? Give us a prediction then for that one.
I think England will win, sadly.
No, you always do this, Kev, because you do the what's that called when because Wales are playing very well at the moment, but you're sort of preparing yourself for the drop, but knowing secretly that it's not actually going to come that way.
Wales are not playing particularly well at the moment. They scraped past Scotland and they got absolutely thumped by the Irish. Oh. But England also are not playing that well, to be totally honest with you. So yeah, it could be closer than we think, but I can't see anything but an England win there.
It's an up in the air for you, is it? What were the boys like the other week, by the way?
Harry Owen.
What were the boys like the other week? Because you didn't. There was no beer. It was just you and.
Oh, they did. Yeah, they came in. We came in the studio and I put the big screen on in the studio and we had a rugby afternoon. Good, good fun.
Good. Right, well, welcome to the show. You and your questions, which we'll come back to in a moment, actually, send them through. If you're not a Fujifilm shooter, don't worry. It's a big community. Whatever flavour you shoot, you're very welcome. This week we have Lucy Hamadzea on the show once more. Part two for this week. Have we got any bump to... I don't know if you've got any bump to the fronts. Have we got any bump to the fronts?
I don't think so. However, I will just double check. And
I've got a bizarre bump to the front, actually, Kev. I've just remembered. If I can, well, it was a bump. But the reason it's a bump to the front is because I think he's a patron of both Photography Daily and the FujiCast, and he sent the question to me, but it was Dear Kev.
There we go.
So should we start with that, just in case this is a bump to the front? I think it might.
Yeah,
well be.
go for it.
Paul Cashman, who did go to school with Michael Cashman, but not that one. Hi, Kev. Great show. Yada, yada, yada. So you didn't even write this to me, Kev. This is just to you. Hi, Kev. Great show.
Which Michael Cashman's he on about? Is he on about the one that was on EastEnders or my good mate in school, Michael Cashman?
Oh.
Because he had a cousin called Paul Cashman.
Is there another Well, this is the one then, Kev.
Must be.
There can't be any other Michael, Paul...
No, there's only two in the world.
No,
must
absolutely.
be them.
Yeah, it must be them. I recently spent a few days laid up on the front room floor with my legs up in the air. Should I have read this before? I did read this beforehand, but it's coming out wrong. Laid up on the front room floor, my legs up in the air with a bad cue YouTube videos. And your XT3 has landed episode in 2018. What was that? Oh, in this video, you pointed out the wonderful British weather and how the XT3 is waterproof. I don't know why his legs were up in the air. Maybe he was drying out. And then offered it toward a bowl of water. No, he's got this entirely wrong, Kev. I remember this video. You didn't make that video, did you? You didn't make the one where you were going to douse the XT3 in water.
No, that was you, wasn't it?
That was me. So he's written a letter to you about a video that I made.
When you never actually doused it in water.
No, I didn't. I mean, I look daft, but I'm not completely daft. I wasn't sure whether the XT3 would, if I put it actually in that bowl of water, whether it would actually be okay. After the heart-stopping moment, as the XT3 held its breath along with the rest of us, you said, come back in 6 months' time and I'll do the test properly. Did you? Did you? And if not, why not? Would you do it now? Notwithstanding professional underwater cameras, are any of the current mirrorless or DSLR cameras able to survive that quick plunge? Well, first of all, so sorry for the confusion. I did read this question, but it's only just occurred to me that I made that video. I thought, Kev, what was that video? But it wasn't yours, it was mine. No, I didn't put it in the water, and I won't ever put it in the water because I don't have it anymore. I don't use XT3s anymore. I've got some XH1s. But would you, Kev? Would you have put it in the water?
Nah. I mean, I dropped my X100 in the swimming pool.
Yeah,
it went to the bottom and came back, and it was fine. But no, I wouldn't do that. And specifically that. I think they are it's called weather sealing for a reason rather than weatherproof because they are sealed, I don't think they have like IP44 ratings or anything like that, like your watch and your phone might have.
Mind you, your X100, it was absolutely fine. Did you do the rice trick? How did you dry it out? Remind me.
No, I was in Spain, so I just left it on a sun lounger.
Okay. That's so
Put
sad.
a gin and tonic next to it. Fine. I had a lovely afternoon.
It did it. Just sitting there sipping its gin and tonic. Said, I'm fine. No worries at all. And that's going to be a trick. We'll come back to the question. That's going to be a tricky one this summer, Kev. You in Spain, no gin and tonic at all. You on the fruit juices for a whole month.
Honestly, it's
easy, isn't it, by now? It's easy.
It'll be fine. Yeah, I don't think about it at all because actually what I found is non-alcoholic beers are really quite nice if you get the right ones.
Yeah.
What's your top? So they're my little weekend treats.
What's your top tip?
Aldi. Cheap ones in Aldi are nice. $2.95 for 6 you can get some Czech thing. Only 49 calories a bottle as well.
Yeah.
Don't go to the co-op and get San Miguel Zero because they're £6 for 4 and they're not very nice. There you go.
In Kev's opinion, I might just say.
Yeah. Other non-alcoholic beers exist.
Well, I tell you what, I read on the BBC website only a couple of days ago that your average bottle of 2 glasses of wine has more than or the same as the level of sugar you're supposed to consume in one day. So think of all this good you're doing for yourself, Kev.
The thing is, like, you could, it is impossible to do the right thing, come to eat or drink, because, you eat good things and they tell you the good things are bad for you. Then you eat the bad things and they tell you the bad things are a little bit better for you, but you should do it in moderation. Then they say you should do some exercise and don't do exercise because you might have a heart attack. Then they say you should eat rice, but don't eat rice, don't eat white rice, you've got to eat brown rice. Honestly, it's the corporations. I don't listen to any of that stuff anymore. It's basically whichever big corporation needs more money, they'll throw at the media to get them to tell you the worry stories to buy their shit.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Kev, the Church of Kev. So, do you know of any current mirrorless or DSLR cameras able to survive a quick plunge? Well, we've already identified that the X100 can survive. I mean, that wasn't a quick plunge. It fell all the way to the bottom of the pool. You must have looked in horror as you saw this thing just go down.
It was one of those moments, wasn't it? But actually, there is Fujifilm cameras that are fully waterproof.
Oh, yeah, there are, yeah.
They're not X-series ones, but they are those, they're underwater cameras. I want to call them IP cameras.
We've got a couple actually, which they come in fancy colours as well, don't they? We had a bronze one and a green one. Oh, what were the model numbers? Anyway, they're totally waterproof.
Yeah, they are. They do those.
Yeah,
you can usually buy them at the airport.
Yeah. It's an airport spend, Kev.
Mm-hmm.
Famous airport spend. Right. On the question front, as I said a moment ago, we are now near the end of all the questions. I knew the day would come, Kev.
There hasn't been one on the Facebook group since our last episode, since our last recording.
You are joking, Kev. Maybe that's it. We have now exhausted all questions. Finally. 3 years in, done.
So remember, folks, you can ask us absolutely anything. It does not have to be about Fujifilm cameras. It could be about
Kev's diet.
anything. It could be about my diet. It could be about anything. Could be whatever. Does not matter.
Oh dear. Right. We've come. I tell you what, the audience figures have gone up and the questions have gone down. I think now people have come used to the fact that somebody else will send one in, and you will sit back in your armchair and listen, which is fine. So, look, we've done that bump to the front. That was a very confusing one to start with. I do apologise, but we got to the bottom of it. Yes, I did make a YouTube film a long, long time ago. It was just after I got the XT3, and there was a lot of fuss, wasn't there, about this weather sealing and how good they were. And I think one other YouTuber, I can't remember who, had said, you could even put this in water and it would be absolutely fine. So I thought, well, fine, we'll do it. And I went to do it, and I thought, oh, hang on a minute, brand new camera, best not. But in 6 months' time, after I've seen a few more people do it, I'll do it. And then I realised nobody else was doing it. So I rather hoped it would all go away, but it didn't.
Quite clickbaity, all that stuff.
It was a bit clickbaity, wasn't it? I've stopped doing that, Kev. It's a terrible habit. I don't like clickbait stuff. Yeah, although we do have sometimes clickbait titles, I know, ish, for us. But we've never been that clickbaity, have we?
No, we haven't. But the world of YouTube is all about clickbait, isn't it?
Do you think it's getting worse as well? I mean, I've seen...
I stopped shooting Fujifilm.
Yeah.
And then actually I didn't.
Yeah, I've given up was another one I saw from a very famous YouTuber only last week. He hadn't given up at all. He'd given up sweets or something. It wasn't about photography.
Yeah.
I've started...
Please forgive me. ...
Yes, that's
read this to find out why. ...
She left me.
Yeah, that's right. She left me, yeah.
Oh. Yes,
I bought a Sony camera and then the world went to shit. No, ... Sorry, no, that wasn't one.
Oh, Kev, what do you have more of a problem with, Sony or Apple?
Oh no, listen, I have no problem with Sony. I promise you. I've never used them, so I.
In a daddy or chips thing, Sony or Apple?
Sony win hands down over Apple. Apple. I had another experience with it. Can you believe it? It's still haunting me, this company.
But you've got rid of all your Apple stuff.
Well, yes, I have. So,
by the way, I'd just like to add for balance, I am a huge Apple fan and user.
So we had, during lockdown, I bought a projector.
Yes.
For our living room wall.
Oh, yeah.
Good fun.
Yeah.
And said projector, I also bought an Amazon Fire Stick, just one of those little dongles you stick in the side so you can watch Amazon and all that kind of stuff on it, which is also very cool. And then over the preceding 20 minutes after we bought the projector, it got broken by one of the kids. So the projector was never really used much, and the Fire Stick just got kind of hidden in a cupboard or drawer, whatever. And then our TV it's a bit slow, our TV. It's a bit old and a bit slow. And then I thought, hang on, I'm going to stick my Fire Stick in the back of that and see if that makes everything better. And voila, ding, ding. It was like a new world opened up. The graphics, the screen was better. The audio, it worked quicker. Everything was better. Lo and behold, we spotted one of the apps on the Fire Stick is your iTunes. You can watch Apple iTunes, which you never used to be able to do on Amazon.
Right.
And of course, I had an old iTunes account, which I bought. I gave Apple crap loads of money for films and stuff. I think I bought the whole of the James Bond series, all kinds of stuff on there over the years. And I thought, maybe I can get to my old iTunes account and watch the stuff that they're holding hostage for me in America.
Holding hostage.
So plugged it in, went to the Apple thing,
and it didn't work.
Installed it. I shivered when I saw the logo come up. And then I put my old username and password in.
Yeah.
And it said, loading.
Yeah.
And then it said, we've sent a 6-digit PIN to your device. And I was like, you bunch of I could not believe it. I was like, I do not have a device.
Do you know what you should do,
very
Kev?
nearly exploded.
You should have made my device the one that they always need to come to when they need a pin. That's the way it would work. And then you could phone me and say, "Can you help me out, Neale? I need a little." And I could do it for you, Kev. And it would be so much better for your blood pressure.
But you know the only way to make that happen is for you to change your entire Apple phone to my old account, which would delete all of your stuff, and then you'd be basically there's no way out.
Right. Who thinks I should do that just to help Kev out? I think so. You're absolutely right.
I don't want it now. They can keep it. Stick the James Bond films up there.
All right. Well, we've established that if you buy anything for Christmas for him and it's between those two brands, buy him a Sony camera. He'll be delighted.
Yes, Sony. I'm happy. Not that I use them, but I have no complaints.
Right. Okay.
Apple, on the other hand.
Shall we safely move on to a question from the Facebook group before we get in any more trouble? So on the Facebook group page, you'll find a pinned post at the top where you can put your questions.
There is a pinned thread at the top where the questions should be posted. I have noticed a couple of people posting direct questions in there, which is fine if other people wishing to answer, but also kind of directed at me. Whilst we might be able to see those and answer those as we go through the week, only the ones in the thread pinned to the top will be picked up for the show.
Only those ones get your special icon, Kev, don't they?
They're the only ones that get the special emoticon.
Yeah. Emoticon.
Those saying that, we haven't had any questions.
Well, we must have some. Go on, Kev. There must be
some older ones. We'll dig in.
Go on, dig in, Kev. Dig in.
But also remember, so we've relaunched the website, by the way, and the contact form is now back online. So if you wish to send a question that way, you can also do it that way. Go to the contact page.
Good.
All right. Question from Jamie Gonzalez 4 weeks ago. Love the show. Listened to it on the way back to work. QQ that I think got lost in the jump between 2021 and 2022. I think it would be great. It's not even a question, see? If you interviewed fellow photographer Peter Elgar from Brentwood, Essex. Oh, well. Write that name down.
Peter Elgar, Brentwood, Essex. Done. I tell you who we have got. Do you remember last week you mentioned to me, we were talking about Charles Brooks, weren't we? And you said at the time, we'll never get Charles Brooks, he's too busy. And I went off and I thought, I'll get him. As a kind of, and I wanted to, I'd seen some stuff and I thought, right, I'll get there's some mental health stuff which I want to use on the Photography Daily podcast because that seems the more appropriate place for that. But I thought, I know that we will get him so we can talk about that amazing photography that we were talking about. This is the chap that takes the pictures of the insides of instruments with a probe camera, which is all very clever. And we got him, Kev. We got him.
We did, indeed. Yeah.
So he'll be on the show. So while we're talking about future ones. Right, go on then. Have you got a question, though? Look down the thread there, Kev. Find a question.
Okay, Rob Wiskin. Hello, gents. Not really a question as such, but would be interested to get your thoughts. With film still having its revival, would it not be a great marketing strategy to release a new 35mm camera that was X-series mounted? They could make it as manual as they liked with very little, if any, electronics, thus making the product relatively cheap to produce, but being the first to bring a new film camera in itself could really bring the name to the spotlight.
Fujifilm making film cameras again. Is that a we shall consider?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a very, very direct we shall consider.
Why?
I know that, well... I mean, yeah, I think it's a very romantic idea, isn't it? But whilst we think, because we're encased in this industry, we think that film photography is having a revival. Yes, it is between, independent kind of photographers. That's ultimately, not the market, is it? The market is the wider generation, the wider populace, if you like, who are just probably more interested in megapixels and flash and all that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't imagine that's something that's on their radar. I might be wrong, and I'd quite like to be wrong, but I can't. It's a little bit like the whole, why don't they make a camera that doesn't have video and all that kind of stuff? And it's basically because if there's two cameras on the shelf next to each other, a Fujifilm one and a Sony one or a Panasonic, and the Fujifilm one doesn't say shoots film, the other two will sell more regardless. And the photographers who don't want film might think, I don't need film, that's fine. But the average person who's going to walk into John Lewis is going to go, that one doesn't have film. I don't need film, but that one doesn't have film.
I might need it one day.
Yeah. So who knows? But
you've never dipped into film, really, have you?
Not really. I do have a handful of film cameras.
Yeah.
Got about 7 of them, in fact. I'm just looking at them now.
Do they work? Have you ever checked?
Yeah, they do all work. Well, they should all work because, none of them are battery run or anything like that. So there's no reason why they shouldn't. On my to-do list for my kind of grand ambitions is to go on a film photography course somewhere. And I'm really only interested in it though if I could develop myself. and that's just never going to happen.
Would you develop the film and then print as well, or would you just process the film rather and then scan? Because I know a lot of people who use film now think, well, okay, I haven't got time to spend in the dark room producing prints, but I would like to process my film and then scan it.
I don't know.
You have time for that? I could just see you there, agitated.
I don't think it's a time thing for me. It's a place thing.
A place?
Literally, the only place I could do it is in my bathroom because it has no mirror and no windows.
Oh, you wouldn't need to worry about that if you were just doing the film, because then you could get yourself a bag and you could unload your film.
Wash it in there.
Do the whole thing. Hang it out to dry on some pegs. Gemma would love that. You can have pegs of film all over the house.
She'd love it.
And then you can scan them and
that's true. Maybe.
Do your spotting and stuff.
Maybe. Anyway, probably not for it's not going to happen anytime soon. Too many things.
Too many things. Well, you've got to do that noodling that you do. Did Gemma tell you off for that in the end?
She did tell me off, actually.
Did she?
Yeah,
I thought she might.
She said, "What's this noodling you do?" I said, "Do you know what it is?"
Yeah, well, she found out.
She looked at me very peculiarly.
Yeah. Right. Here's one from John Debrincat. Got to get the jingle ready. Hi, Kev. When are you coming to Australia? When's the answer, Kev?
Well, we're allowed now, aren't we? So maybe tomorrow, maybe next week.
I'm not going to suggest you watch cricket when you get here, though.
Oh, I don't care about the cricket. But yes, absolutely. I wouldn't. I'd rather chew grass.
Though I'd enjoy a cold one with you.
Yeah.
Well, it'll have to be a cold lemonade these days. But I enjoy listening to your podcast. Listening to episode 218, you guys touched on street photography with flash. In my opinion, I say it's just the same as any street photography, except for the addition of artificial light. As a matter of fact, I enjoy shooting that way myself occasionally, as you do get some interesting expressions at times. You do, don't you? I mean, it's the shock thing, isn't it, Kev?
Yeah.
I prefer to shoot in front of a subject with a street rather than being sneaky, creeping around stealth-like. Though in a public place, one must expect no privacy. They say looking up most street corners nowadays in big cities, it's not surprising to find at least one CCTV camera pointed at you, taking at least 24 pictures of you every single second. Well, that's a fair point, isn't it? Ironically, you have no ideas on the other end of the CCTV camera. But with a street photographer, it's highly likely you'll have the opportunity to approach the camera operator if you disapprove of your picture being taken. That's a very good point, Kev.
Oh, yeah. It's a point I make all the time about the CCTV and everything. And interestingly, somebody, who was it? Somebody mentioned, we had a post, I think it was a Facebook post today, in fact, who said it was a very grown-up conversation about Bruce Gilden we had, which is rare because mostly conversations about Bruce Gilden are I punch his face in, and we didn't have that conversation because it is a very valid way of shooting. But the interesting, what he said was very similar. That he said, the people who complain about people taking photographs on the street are the people who've got Amazon Alexas and Google Nests and Apple whatever, and all of those devices are listening to you and watching you and filming you and all of those things. Yet you're quite happy to say, hey, device, order me 10 cups of tea, to be delivered tomorrow. But going out on the street, you think the person with the photographer is some kind of criminal or, very good point.
I've noticed now that the one that starts with A has started answering back.
Oh, really?
Really, yeah. It's there's something has happened over the last couple of weeks. It's she's adding a 2 pennyworth into to conversations in a way that she wasn't before, which is very bizarre. So, in my opinion, he says, street photography is open slather, except perhaps when it comes to photographing children. And, of course, we talked about the breastfeeding mothers as well, didn't we? Mm-hmm. Common sense goes a long, long way. So I often ask myself before I shoot, think, dignity and respect. Would I like to be seen in the way that I'm imaging the shot that I'm about to take? If it's a no, let the shot go. Dignity.
Yeah, absolutely. None of us can say this is the way you have to do something. Yeah. And a lot of people, I think Bruce Gilden gets picked up a lot because his style is very subjective, it's very direct. And actually, his style is different now, but wasn't so different back in the day. And probably he's got more courage than a lot of other photographers. But he hasn't changed. His photography hasn't changed, but society has changed.
I tell you whose photography I had not seen this work before, and you're a big fan of his. I'd not really seen Martin Parr's early black and white work before.
Oh yeah, Hebden Bridge stuff.
I know.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and it's chalk and cheese, isn't it?
Well, he basically made a decision to go to colour way before everybody else was like, no, you can't do colour's too expensive, and none of the newspapers print colour, or nobody will want colour.
Yeah.
And he put his little smirk on his face and went, I'm going to colour. And away he went.
Absolutely. Right. Back to your questions shortly. Let's introduce part 2 of your conversation with Lucy Hamidzadeh. And, you spoke to her a couple of weeks ago, didn't you, Kev?
Yeah. Really, I loved it. A lovely conversation. Very bubbly personality. Very, very, very good photographer. Do you go out every day? Are you one of these people that has a camera around your neck at all times and off you go?
Yep.
Good for you.
We were going down to Lewisham Market yesterday. I'll probably go out after this.
Yeah.
Because it's raining.
Yeah. That's amazing. I think, kudos to you, because I struggle with that, I have to say, especially since the lockdown. And, for me, the passion for instinctive photography drifted a bit.
Well, there was less people, wasn't there?
Yeah. It was just like this, the whole world was on a funny tilted angle for a little while, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So good for you that
I mean, I didn't shoot, to be honest, I didn't shoot through lockdown. It was a weird time, and I didn't want to get close to people, and I didn't want them to feel threatened by somebody with a camera. So that was, it was a weird time.
Yeah. So, it was. I mean, it's been discussed a million times, and it's, there has been some amazing photography that came out of lockdown.
Yes.
But I'm glad to see that we're seeing photography that is no longer in lockdown. Yes. So talking about your Instagram feed, is that some, like, I love looking at people's Instagram feeds that are they're not overly markety, they're not overly advertising. I love sharing my pictures and chatting about them and everything. And you've got a really good following, and it's an established feed. Do you does that drive you to shoot? Is social media? I suppose the question I'm asking is there a pressure on you in terms of Instagram, or is Instagram purely a beautiful thing?
For me, if I love taking photos for myself, so I share it because it's just for me.
Yeah.
If there was one person following me, I'd probably still just share. The numbers, the following doesn't matter to me. If I can inspire someone, or it sparks a curiosity or a conversation, that for me is beautiful. The rest of it, I just do it for me.
Yeah.
Photography is a mindfulness thing for me anyway. I find it satisfying. I love just going out on my own. It's a freedom. So for Instagram, it's just somewhere where I share it. It's the platform that I go to. So even if I had one follower, I'd still share.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. The reason why I asked that question actually was it wasn't on my thought process until a couple of days ago, and there was a thread in the Facebook group where people were talking about Instagram and how it keeps changing its algorithms and all this kind of stuff, and everybody had, there's no right or wrong kind of opinion on it, but there are people who their currency, if you like, of photography is how many likes they have and how many followers, and if they can't keep that up, then they lose interest in it, and that might be a very valid opinion. However, for me, I'm the same as you. I don't really care. It does drive business for me, but that's my kind of next question in terms of Instagram and social media. So you've done marketing campaigns for the likes of Nokia and Huawei, Dell, I think, Dell laptops. Where does that kind of work come from? Does that come from things like Instagram, or do you have an agent, or is it just people or how does? It's
come from Instagram, but I'm always very conscious that's my feed. I've curated that. I don't want to become a marketer. I don't want to put, socks on there, or a watch. I've turned things down because it's me.
Yeah.
And the marketing, showing this or I've been given isn't me.
Yeah.
So I'm very conscious of that, because I don't want to stray from my style and what I'm saying.
And I think that's why the feed works then, because it's good that it does drive opportunities, but also it's clear that it's not a I'm looking to be an influencer type thing. And that's great. So simply that means your currency is not likes, which is obvious, but it actually does work from a business point of view as well, which is amazing. So in terms of picture, I once had a conversation with I think it was Martin Parr, and I said to him, what's his favorite picture? And he said, well, that's like asking an author what's their favorite page in a book. So I'm going to ask you the same question. What is if you could pick one picture or a series of pictures out of the ones you've shot so far, which ones might that be to take on the desert island with you?
I'm going to say the hands, and I do have a favorite shot in my book, and it's on the underground, and I just took one shot because I went down onto the underground. I can't remember what station. I think it was I can't remember what station. It was at Piccadilly Circus, so I don't know. I can't remember. And I'd been out all day and I'd not shot anything. And I try not to put pressure on myself, but back then I was, and that was when I was working in the office. So I was like, this is my weekend. I haven't got any photos. And it was a Sunday, so I was like, I'm back to work tomorrow. I went down onto the underground, was outside of the carriage, and there was a mum or a dad, I don't know, and a little child, and they just put their finger on the adult's hand. It was just, you can see the little crinkle in the skin, and it was just this beautiful moment. The light was really good. It's not the sharpest, but it's my favorite. Just the moment, how it all came together. It was like muscle reflex on the settings, and it was just one shot.
yeah Another one. And it's interesting you mentioned that about sharpness, because that's it's basically irrelevant, isn't it? It's all about the moment and and what comes from that. I always think it's quite interesting that all of us are guilty of this, I suppose, spend thousands on digital cameras, and then we edit them in black and white, or people put filters on them and stuff to make them look like they were shot on cameras in the 70s, which I do too.
Add a bit of grain and
add a little bit of grain, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and then when we're buying the camera, it's like, how many megapixels does it? Is it clean? Is it sharp? It's totally irrelevant. But on that point, what is your? I mean, we are the FujiCast, but it's we're not brand specific in that regard. So what do you actually shoot with generally these days?
I shoot with a Sony A7R Mark III.
Okay. And is that, I don't know the Sony range any longer, but is that a smallish camera, relatively large?
It's a mirrorless one, so it's small.
And do you normally shoot with the same kind of lenses, or are you?
Yeah, well, my 55 was permanently stuck to the camera because I love that lens, but during the last 2 years I had to adapt, so I bought an 85, and I love the 85, but it's quite easy to get, and I like getting close. So right. and just the last 2 weeks in central London have been crazy busy, and the 85 isn't working for me now. So I'm going to switch back to I love my 55. It's the one, my go-to.
I think that's really interesting that, obviously, and so presumably you switched to the 85 because of social distancing, yes. Kind of people being uncomfortable about somebody being so close to that stuff.
Yeah.
And then I noticed it too. I was in London last Thursday, which was the first day of the not staying at home rule.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there on the Wednesday as well. And suddenly the difference between Wednesday and Thursday was like, rabbits coming out of hibernation, if rabbits hibernate, I don't know. But, there's like hundreds of people coming out of the tube that weren't there the day before. Yeah. It's really interesting that you kind of have to adapt to that thing, I think that's something that's always, for me as a photographer, and one of the questions we've had a lot on the FujiCast is, with lockdown weddings and stuff, what are you going to do? Are you going to get close to people? And the answer simply was that, no, we'll have to use longer lenses.
Yeah. And because you don't want to upset I never want to upset anyone, because if I upset someone, my day's upset. And then I won't want to take pictures. So I'm always really conscious of not upsetting anyone. And if I'm getting too close and I can feel like the older person might not be comfortable, then it's not worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's integrity, isn't it? Ultimately, as a photographer, and that's why it upsets me that street photography is getting such a bad rap, because 99.99999% of the photographers do have that integrity and those good wills.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's next? What's happening for Lucy next? What's any projects on the go? Anything coming up?
Well, my hand series is growing.
Good.
I would love to do a book on hands.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that too loud, because just in case it doesn't happen. So that's an ongoing project. But I actually do weddings as well with my friend. So we went into business together during lockdown, which was weird. And last year was good. Weddings are street photography at a special occasion.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've had a few of those and a few christenings and parties. And yeah, that's been fun. So I hope that carries on.
Sorry, go ahead.
And writing. I'm still writing. So.
Good. I'd be interested to see how the weddings go, because often it's wedding photographers become street photographers rather than street photographers become wedding photographers. So
okay,
that'll be interesting.
That's interesting.
Yeah, indeed. So I have one final question, which I ask to everybody. If you could take one day out and go shooting with any other photographer, alive or dead, for one day, who might it be and why?
Okay. It might be a bit cliche. Vivian Maier. I love her. And not just the way that she managed to capture these moments, and we're talking years ago, but just, I think she'd be quite a fascinating person, because she was a bit weird. Yeah. And so I'd love to more find out about her, and then the shooting would come maybe second. Yeah. Because I think she's just, the way she managed to get these moments, and without, it wasn't we didn't even know. She doesn't know.
She didn't know either. That's the most intriguing thing, isn't it?
Oh, it's just incredible. I'd love to just get inside her mind. So yeah, she would be the one.
That would be a great guest. Okay, Lucy, it's been amazing chatting to you. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Where can people find you generally, buy your books, all of that kind of stuff?
You can find me on Instagram at Juicy Lucy Ham. And my link tree's there you can get the book there, or my website, which is lucyhammedsada.com.
Thanks to Lucy for the last couple of weeks, and of course we'll link to her work in the show notes, which you'll find on fujicast.co.uk, episode 219. If you like your country music, Thursday, make a date to be with At Mullins, as in Mr. Ben fashion, 70s kid show reference now. He goes into the changing room and comes out as a country music toting radio presenter on incapablestaircase.com. That is the place to be at 3:30 p.m. UK time, Thursday afternoons, as Country Boyo, that's Kev's radio stage name, plays the best in country that you'll know, and the odd track that may surprise you for its alternative flavour. 3:30 Thursday, incapablestaircase.com with Mullins. Then on Fridays, I have my other podcast, Photography Daily, where we go for a photo walk with a mailbag and making pictures as we walk together, talking about why we make those photographs, the why above the how. And this coming week, it's from a new location, a very different kind of walk, recorded at temperatures that necessitate hand warmers. I also have a special guest, a very special guest, who we've talked about on this show a good few times actually. The godfather of modern colour photography on the streets, Joel Meyerowitz, talks with me from his home in beautiful Tuscany. It is an extraordinarily frank conversation at times, which is a play, I suppose, on the fact Robert Frank was responsible in many ways for the epiphany that led Joel to become a photographer. Joel talks about the why of photography in his life, his philosophy, his approach.
Because that's all photography is. It's a sensibility that you feel about where you are or things you see. And you react within your sensibility by saying, ooh, and you raise the camera and you make a photograph of the thing that called out to your sensibility. And by doing this again and again, you define yourself or you identify who you are to yourself. And that's the story of photography.
Joel Meyerowitz on Photography Daily this Friday or on photographydaily.show. Right, back to your questions. Kev, I think we got another thought from our Paul Cashman, who knows Michael Cashman. Didn't you know that?
I was just noticed as I was scouring the Facebook thread for questions. He put a picture up of him and his dad, bless him, and lovely, really lovely picture. What a surprise! Here my question read out today. He's a double surprise today, Paul, because you're on there again. Just for the record, I have my own Michael Cashman too. My dad. Anyone else have their own Michael Cashman? I got a Michael Cashman. Have you got a Michael Cashman? I
must know Michael Cashman somewhere. Everybody knows a Michael Cashman.
Yeah.
Was that your thing that you had a question, didn't you?
No, that was it really. It's a really nice picture of him and his dad. I'm going to ask you a very personal question, Paul.
Go on then.
How old are you? Because you are a very, very smart looking gentleman.
Right.
But he's got a little bit of a grey beard.
It's all about...
And his dad is very smart looking as well.
But he hasn't got a grey beard.
No, he's cleanly shaved.
Oh, I see.
Like most men of his generation are.
Yeah. Ben Middleton. Hi, guys. I've been listening since the beginning. I've learned so much from you both about photography as an art, but also as a Fujifilm shooter myself with an X-T3 about how to use my camera. So there's a yada 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 thing here about the quality of the podcast. He's been running his own podcast with his partner Ellie for a year now. Nothing to do with photography, mind, but about gardening for wildlife. If my memory serves me right, in an old episode, neither of you were sure who Monty Don was. I think you knew who Monty Don was. It was me, wasn't it?
I knew who he was. Yeah, I didn't quite know how famous he was.
Yeah.
Well, I knew he was famous, but I didn't realise he was like, the Adonis of gardening world. He's the Adonis. Elon Musk of green-fingered people.
Given he is possibly, as Ben says, the most famous gardener in the world, yeah. I'm not sure our podcast will be up your street. Well, we'll try it. You and Ellie, Ben, doing your podcast. If you could do a podcast with Gemma, what would it be about, Kev?
We've often talked about doing an anonymous one.
An anonymous one? Well,
Anonym.
How are you going to market that, Kev?
It would be called something like the I don't know.
I think it would fly, Kev. You and
Gemma. It would all be about Malmesbury and the people.
Would it?
Yeah. Problem is, we'd have to hide our voices.
Yeah, well, and
all the stories would be about our friends, and then they'd know it was us.
I think your plan is falling apart.
The secret husband and wife of Malmesbury.
Yeah, that's sounding a bit dodgy now, Kev.
No, not like that, but like gossip and stuff.
Yeah.
She said, he said.
I just think you and Gemma. I've heard you two when I've been round for it's been a long time since I came round for dinner, Kev. God dear. You
been a long time since anybody's come round for dinner.
I know. Yeah, that's because you nailed up the door. Nobody's allowed in.
Unfortunately, the kids come round every day, often 3 times a day. We are spending so much money.
What on?
Everything has gone up. Did you see I got an email today about Sim Imaging and putting their album prices up on average 27%.
I know.
Insane.
Ouch.
I filled my car up with diesel the other day. First time ever, it was over £90.
Oof.
Honestly.
I'm getting into street photography, he says, rescuing this.
Oh, sorry.
Says Ben. And we often hear it's getting harder with people, the subjects we photograph, less willing to have their pictures taken. My thought is perhaps it is us photographers who've actually gotten scared of being around strangers. More and more we live in separate boxes, drive around in cars. Well, not if you're Kev, because it's too expensive. Gardens fenced off. Children not playing on the street. I live in a terrace. Think Coronation Street, he says. And now every garden has a 6-foot fence around it. 100 years ago, you'd have been able to see down the whole row of low-walled gardens. There was no escaping other people. That's a good point, actually, Kev. Guy just up the road from here. We call it Trump Towers because he literally put up this. I mean, honestly, it looks like the kind of thing that you would put up the wall that you would put up outside Strangeways Prison. And he's got this sort of a gate that opens and yeah, it's this got to be like a 10 or 11 foot high fence. It's weird. Do you think people are hiding themselves away more? Do you think this time has been to blame for it?
I don't think it's to do with this time. I think it's just to do with the general, like the world we live in. It's almost like we're being educated to mistrust people rather than trust people, and that's nothing to do with the pandemic.
Yeah. Compounded, he says, by COVID, perhaps. Yeah. Okay.
Compounded, yeah, absolutely. Although I do feel like COVID, certainly in the beginning, actually made people, I mean, we would stand in their garden, and chat to the neighbours. We never did that before COVID came along.
Yeah.
And that was a good thing. So, we don't do it anymore because COVID's gone away. Well, we're no longer under restrictions, put it that way.
Well, we're not.
So
we're not. Other countries are, but we're not.
Yeah. We used to, when I grew up, I moved when I was 9, lived in Aston Crescent, and we lived in an old house that had an underground, what do you call it?
Bunker?
War shelter.
Bunker?
War shelter, yeah. Anderson shelter.
Anderson shelter. Oh, that.
Yeah, but it was under the ground. It was an underground one, so you could go down the steps into it.
I don't think that was an Anderson shelter then, was it? Because they were made out of corrugated steel iron or whatever they were made out of. And
yeah, well, that was the top bit. So the shed was the Anderson shelter, and then there were steps that went underneath to this bunker.
Wow.
And it was just like Coronation Street, really long garden, very thin, and neighbours on either side. Yeah. Everybody had their roses and flowers and all that kind of stuff. And I was a little kid growing up there, and I vividly remember like Mrs. Dando next door. She was lovely. She was ancient. She'd be about 130 years old now, I expect, probably dead. But I used to race snails. Used to race my snails. And
God, that was thrilling. I want to come to a snail race.
Mrs. Dando used to say, "How are they getting on today, young man?" That was a very communal feel. We do have that in Malmesbury, a communal feel. We do still kind of chat over the fences and all that kind of stuff. Although not that much, but
I would imagine that the conversation has changed in Malmesbury. You must all be discussing what colour Range Rover you're going to buy next. It's changed from
He's got Range. You can't park a Range Rover in Malmesbury. Good Lord. Minis only.
All right. But no, that's a good point.
It is a good point.
In other words, our society makes us come into contact with strangers less often. Watching some documentaries recently about street photographers from the 60s up to today, I was struck by the fact that people on the street were no less wary of some photographers than they are now, perhaps. It's just that the photographers were more used to dealing with strangers, so that if they were stopped and asked what they were doing, it was just a good opportunity to have a chat with somebody new. Often this comfort with strangers was learned. Many of the famous street photographers grew up in poorer circumstances, where they had no choice but to live cheek by jowl with a great multitude of humanity. Very well written, Ben, from Nottingham. Very good indeed. Yeah, and I think he's absolutely right. An interesting thing that I noticed from the retreat thing that I was doing over on other podcast, went away with, there were 6 of us, 6 photographers in all. 2 in particular were very adept at just making conversation with people, starting conversations, and then asking, can I take your picture? And they might say yes, or they might say no.
Is Anna one of them?
She was. You always knew. You'd hear her voice. You think, Anna's talking to somebody else. And another chap, Paul Hudson, he was phenomenally good at just being able to start a conversation. In fact, we walked down one road toward the seafront to go do what we were planning to do, and he'd stopped by, I think it was six funeral directors who were standing out the front of a funeral that was going on, obviously behind them in the church. And Paul said, "Look, this might be inappropriate, chaps, but I'd really like to document this moment. If you stand," they were standing there looking like they were guarding the place. And he got this picture, and on his Instagram, it was recognised by the wife of the husband that was the funeral. And she asked for a print of that particular picture. And that all came about because Paul and Anna were not afraid to go up to people and chat to them. I thought that was amazing, Kev.
Yeah. Very good. Very good.
Conversation. I can tell.
No. It's good. There's not really anything to say about it, is there? It's one of those. That's a serendipity moment, isn't it, for the wife? To get that extra.
Weird.
Probably
weird,
the only photo, perhaps, if she didn't have it photographed. Yeah, so that's nice for her.
Yeah.
Absolutely comes from the foresight of Paul. You said Paul, I think you said.
It was Paul, yeah. I reckon us photographers, says Ben, just need to get used to stepping out of our little comfortable boxes and learn to be around strangers again. What do you think? I think the answer is yes, Ben. But I know it's hard to do. There was a man I saw, Kev, eating an ice cream. He was the very picture of a man in a suit who was supposed to be working, but had said, rum and raisin to this, I'm having a 2-scoop. He too looked like a member of the management, and I asked him for a picture, and he looked me square in the eyes like I was about to steal his flake and said, no. And I left without my prize, wishing I was as good as Anna or Paul at engaging, Kev. It's
the luck of the draw, isn't it, really, these days, in terms of who's going to say what. But yeah, you do need to have the peace of mind. Yeah, I probably wouldn't do it. I probably wouldn't approach a stranger and say, can I take your picture?
Yeah.
Then I'm uglier than you.
That's not true, Kev. You're the new slimline, good-looking George Clooney, Kev. I know. I've seen your pictures, Kev. You're a fighter as well now.
Take it to wearing a baseball cap now. It's got that bad.
Your black belt. What are you talking about? It's got that bad. What are you covering with your baseball cap?
The cool bit on the top. The bit that lets all the air in.
Has that been growing, Kev? Is it like the ozone layer? It's beginning to separate.
Exactly. Oh, dear. It's not been growing as fast as I quite like.
Oh no! What are you going to do, Kev? Are you going to shave it all off?
No, I would look like some terrible person.
Would you look like one of the boys outside the nightclub? Coming in.
I would.
No,
I would look like
Kev.
that.
No, you look cool. Listen.
I'd look like. You know what I'd look like?
What?
I'd look like an angry bowling ball.
An angry bowling ball.
Yeah.
No, Kev. Once it starts to go, just do it, Kev. Don't fight it.
My dad. You see, I'm following the same route as my dad, and my dad's still got his hair is just a bit less in the middle.
Kev,
it's depressing.
Do it. Who says Kev should do it? And a quick question as well. What are your favourite photography documentaries? Soul Lighter for me. There's some, I can't remember the names of them, but look up Soul Lighter. There's some fabulous documentaries about Soul Lighter. Got my DVDs somewhere, Kev. I'll find them.
In fact, probably the only book on my bookshelf that we haven't talked about on the show is one of the Soul Lighter books.
Ah, is it? We should do.
No, we shouldn't.
Why?
Because it's a very subjective book. It's called In My Room.
Oh, right.
I'll let people look it up for themselves. It's a very, very great photographic book, but there's a lot of kind of contentious comments about it. However, you're right about the documentaries and stuff, and that's a good link, because on the shiny new FujiCast website, it seems like only yesterday we were saying this about the old one.
Yeah.
I finally ditched the aching and groaning previous website,
which is,
and we now have a new shiny Squarespace one, which is a lot easier to manage. But on there's a page called Movies. And we did always have that on the previous one, but this is a lot better in terms of being able to watch and see stuff. So we have curated some movies on there, online documentaries, which we will be kind of adding to as we move forward. But you can watch them all within the site now, rather than necessarily popping out to YouTube and all that kind of stuff. There's some good ones on there. There's an interview with Sebastião Salgado. The David Hearn one is a great one. Then obviously, if you're talking about full level documentaries that are available for free, there's the Patron one, which was on Netflix, but the full episode is available for free. But personally, the one that I love is the documentary about oh God, it's a terrible day. A thingamajiggy, what's her name? The one with the camera who died and never seen any of her pictures.
Vivian Maier.
Yeah. That's the one. Finding Vivian Maier. That's a great film, because it's It's got jeopardy in it. It's got intrigue.
Yeah.
And also it shows a lot of the pictures.
Jason P. Howe, I'll throw that one into the ring as well. A Good Day to Die, Hoka Hey, I think it's called. A Good Day to Die, Hoka Hey, which is about this phenomenal character who worked in a Jessop's shop and taught himself conflict photography, went across to Colombia. I mean, imagine that, Kev. Rocking up in Colombia thinking, right, where do I go for the trouble? Never mind asking grown men with ice creams. That's a whole new level, isn't it? If you can have their picture, that's a whole new level.
Indeed, it is, yeah.
I've just, by the way, looked at the Soul Lighter one. I understand why you probably don't want to do that book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it is a good book, but
yeah, not one for the family show, perhaps, because of some of the conversations that come up. Oh, blimey, Neale, I'm off to look at that now. So thank you, Ben. And if you want, it's the Wild Garden, podfollow.com/The Wild, and then garden is just GDN. So if you're into your gardening and you know who Monty Don is, then Ben and his partner Ellie have been presenting their podcast. And very soon, The Wild People of Malmesbury with Kevin Gemma.
He said, she said.
I think
actually, that's what it should be called.
He said, she said. Write it down, Kev. There can't be one called that. He said, she said.
Copyright Mullins, that is.
Quick, no, yeah. Nobody else is allowed to do it.
Trademark. Copyright.
He said, she said.
He said, she said.
I think it'll be a success. Right, your question. Do you have one from the Facebook group? Can you delve back and find one, Kev?
This is not so much a question, but a comment from a Michael Schilling. Ooh. The Michael Schilling.
Not the.
Yep, the Michael Schilling.
Did he go to school?
Who is now a eco-activist, by the way.
What? An eco-activist?
Yeah, he's an eco-activist.
What? When did that happen?
Yeah, he changed for the better. So, like most photographers, my search for... He's not just an eco-activist, but he is an eco-activist as well as...
Good for him.
A photographer. Yeah. Like most photographers, my search for the perfect bag is continuous and never-ending. Hopefully it's vegan now, Michael.
Yeah.
When interviewing people and asking about kit, would it be possible to ask what bag they like the most?
What bag they like the most?
Yeah, no is the answer.
Why not? I think it's a good idea, Kev.
No.
All photographers...
Could you imagine speaking to like Martin Parr or whatever and saying, oh, by the way, thanks for all of that insight. What bag do you use?
He'd love it. I think most photographers say, "Oh, you've just hit my hidden sort of that's the Achilles heel moment, isn't it?"
I just actually bought a new bag.
See, there we go, Kev. Kev, you bought what have you bought?
I bought the Amazon Basics one, camera bag. Looks pretty good actually because I've got a new GFX 100S coming.
So you bought it the cheapest bag you could.
Yeah, but the Amazon Basics is brilliant. It can fit my laptop in it. It can fit this camera in it. I'll obviously chuck away the divider things. And then it's a backpack rather than a kind of,
Kev,
shoulder bag.
You said you'd never use a backpack. You said to me, I do
this is for my street photography workshops, not for weddings. I couldn't do it at the wedding. Right. But I'm going to just keep my GFX 100S in there rather than...
So is it an Amazon Basics camera bag?
Yeah, I'm going to get the link for it now.
I'm just looking it up to see it. They look all right, actually. Yeah. I don't know why I'm saying that in a surprised fashion.
The exact one.
There's a nice one here, the large shoulder bag, which I would have thought, blimey, Kev, hang on. I stopped mid-sentence, £21.21.
Yeah, they're really cheap. And I've had Amazon Basics stuff for years, and they last a lot longer than some of the other stuff.
Oh, don't mention the trade names on that one.
No, I won't.
They look all right, Kev. These look absolutely perfect.
Yeah, they're fine. They're really good. Yeah. 21 quid, 23 quid, whatever it is. I can't see it now.
And you can actually buy packs of spare dividers. I'm going to send you some because you'll need them. Put your GFX in there. Don't know if you're throwing away dividers.
Well, of course, the GFX 100S is a lot smaller than the GFX 100, which I've sold. Yeah. So it'll all fit in there. I'm quite excited by this.
Well, the most expensive one I can find here is £42.08. Mm-hmm. The 8 pence being very important. I don't know if this is the one you've got because this is a shoulder one.
No, it's a backpack.
Well, yeah, it's a backpack. It's a DSLR and laptop backpack. So mirrorless or whatever you want to put in there, obviously.
Yeah.
I'd want to know that I do worry sometimes about where cheap stuff is made. And
it's made in Putin back in China, isn't it?
By Putin in China? Is he got a little
Putin back in China.
Oh, right, okay.
So you have to, your moral compass needs to decide whether you want to support that or not.
Yeah, I'm coming around full circle a little bit. I don't know, but then again, I don't know where the other ones are made. To be fair,
yeah.
But these do. I mean, if we can just put that aside for one moment, if you need a camera bag, wow, I'm looking at these thinking, what value?
Amazon Basics for almost any, well, not almost anything, but or any cables. I always buy Amazon Basics batteries, Amazon Basics.
What's happened to your rich get richer, poor get poorer thing when you think about Amazon?
Well, it's better, isn't it? I'm getting richer because I'm not spending any money. I'm spending a lot less money.
I'm talking about the organisation, Kev, not you.
Yeah. But I'm not. That's businesses are very separate. It's the governments that have that attitude.
Right.
You know, businesses are there to make money, aren't they?
But looking at the bags, Kev, I've got to say, I didn't know about this. I didn't know this at all about Amazon. These look stunningly good value and every bit as good as the bags that I buy.
If you go to Amazon and just type in Amazon Basics and nothing else, you'll see all kinds of stuff that you'll think, oh my giddy aunt, look at that. 48 AA batteries, 16 quid.
The batteries I found aren't too good. I've found
chairs. My office chair is Amazon Basics office chair. I've had it 6 years. My office chair, probably longer than that.
Amazon Pet Bucket Booster Seat. It's got it all, Kev.
Honestly, you'll find some good toilet brush. Soft bristle toilet brush. 2 of them, $16.99.
$16.99. I've just seen it.
Yeah.
They come in different colours.
Oh, the plug extenders and all that kind of stuff. They're excellent value. Look at this. So this. Actually, interestingly, I'm going to get this.
He's off on one now, everybody.
It's a tower extension, 12 plugs, but with 4 USBs, but one of which is a Type-C. Very hard to find a plug extender with a USB Type-C on it and 3 USB Type-2s on it. 22 quid.
I've got the one, £22 and 9 pence, Kev. A whole 9 pence more.
Reduced from £25.99.
I know, look at that.
Limited time deal, that is, where I'm having that.
We had an Amazon ban last month.
Well, I'm going to go for the 5 meter one as well, rather than a 2 meter one.
Okay, well, there we go. If you can get past your morals thing with some of it, I know how some people feel, but otherwise, those backpacks, Kev, spot on. Right, do we have time for another question? Yes, we do.
I haven't. I'm just buying this plug a sec.
I know you are. So shall I? I'll read the question out, then you can answer it. Jody Cachillo. Love the podcast, relatively new listener, so I'm playing catch up. I'm an enthusiast, starting to transition from a full-time attorney to a part-time photographer. Ooh, blimey, that's a left turn at the traffic lights, if ever there was one. I have an XT3, X Pro 2, and X100V. See, full-time attorney, you could probably have 8 of those. I use the XT3 mostly for landscape and seascape with a 1024, 1555 and 55-200. I also own the 90mm f2, 56-12, 16-14, 23 f2, 35 f2. Are we in the wrong business, Kev? Should we have gone into being attorneys?
Well, interestingly, that name rang a bell, and I thought, I'm sure I had an email this morning.
Yeah, you did this one. Or do you mean one for you? A separate one, Kev?
He bought my presets, so that's why I saw the email.
Oh, there you go. There we go. Well, that would be the cheapest thing he's bought this day. I love street photography in addition to taking family and party photographs. I'm selling the 23 f2. My thoughts are, if I want that focal length, I have the X100V, which is with me always. And that's something we've discussed before. I'm thinking of selling the 16-14 and the 35 f2, then purchase the 33 1.4. Now you're talking Kev's language. The 16 1.4 is a great lens, but I don't do video, so not a great focal length for the street. I just can't bring myself to get rid of that 56-12 and the 90 f2. Do you agree or have other suggestions? I hope you kept up with his list, Kev. There was a lot going on there.
It was, yeah. Well, I never use the 56 or 90 for street photography, but other people do.
Yeah.
So just because I don't, it doesn't mean... You know, some people, and maybe after everything we spoke about today, there's a justification in being a bit further away from people if you're out on the streets.
Well, 56, of course, would be a great street portrait lens, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. Well, the 90 would be even better, actually.
Yeah, the 90, yeah.
But yes, it's easier to carry and move around and everything.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think the sweet spot for street photography, for me, storytelling-wise, is either the 18 or 23mm lens. Yeah, that's probably...
You've gone firmly 18 now, haven't you? And 33 as well?
Not for streets. I do have the 33. I did buy the 33. My ambition for that was the 33 would replace the 56 1.2 at weddings, but it hasn't. So I suspect the 33 might be going with my GFX 100 to Wex.
All right.
But not the 18.
Not yet.
I keep that next to me in bed.
Do you?
Yeah.
Does Gemma mind?
No, she's very happy with that.
Okay.
Yeah. She knows the score.
Oh, well, that's it for another week. Remember to send in this week some questions. So do it. There's 2 ways to do it. So, Kev.
There's 4 ways to do it.
4?
Believe it or not.
What?
So there's 4 ways to send us questions to the FujiCast podcast, and if you don't, we'll have to end. So route 1 is you can just simply open up your email, type in click@fujicast.co.uk, and then send an email. Dear Kev, dear Neale, here is my question. Lots of love, person. The second way is to go to the Facebook group FujiCast. Just search FujiCast, join the group, and at the top of the posts is a thread that says questions for the podcast thread, and that is looking very bare right now. The third way is to join Patron. If you join Patron for the price of a coffee, you can be bumped to the front, which means that your questions will be guaranteed to be answered before you make a cock up and forget about them.
Yeah.
And the fourth way is to go to the new shiny new website and go to the contact form and just fill it in.
Brilliant.
And then press send.
Fifth way, pop round to Kev's house.
Yeah.
And knock on the door because he doesn't have any visitors by the sounds of it.
Yeah, pop around my house. Come in the studio anytime. Bring a coffee, non-alcoholic drink, and a smile. And you'll be more than welcome.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week. Thanks to Lucy Hamadzadeh today. Next week, yes, Charles Brooks is going to be on the show. He is the man that made the photographer that made those phenomenal pictures of the insides of instruments. Some of the instruments, by the way, Kev, I'm not sure I'd trust myself, are like $300,000 pianos. Unbelievable.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Oh. Music from Blue Wednesday, supporting music from the incredible artlist.io, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.